heard some things.
What things you heard?
I heard some things.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Hope you were clapping along to that wonderfully timed intro. Joe Rockhead, here's a big salute to you about, why didn't you make the intro longer? His sarcastic thing. Well, I like a bouncy tune, and I want to be introduced to a bouncy tune. I don't have the attention span that you have of like a mockingbird or whatever, so I can stay and hang with that song. Well, welcome to episode 7. This will be the second part for a bit, talking about the Cars. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming with the friends and the discussions. I don't have anything that's really bothering me this week, which is, yes, I definitely want to see who's available. I want to say that Mikey Surfing, I'm here. Let's rock. All right, Mikey. Finally. Anytime you want to chime in, anybody at home, Mikey, you want to chime in, you want to discuss something, let me know. I am here for you people. I mean, I'm a man of the people. I think the only thing that's really bothering me is, and I know everybody's down on Walmart, and Walmart's, it's known to have, some of you are odd shoppers. I just don't get these people, and this isn't not just Walmart, it's just when you go to the movies. Why are people in their pajamas and they're not even wearing coats anymore? They go to have blankets around them, especially the younger folk. I don't get it. Just put on some pants, for Christ's sakes. I mean, I don't wear a coat. You don't have to come out. What do you come right from the couch? You go to the movies? I don't get it. But enough of that nonsense. We're here to talk about the Cars 2 weeks in a row. And I want to take a deeper dive in more of my personal experiences with the Cars. I mean, I felt like that was got a pretty good response about me, doing Rick's poetry and at the Knitting Factory and some encounters I had with him throughout my life. And I guess I wanted to discuss. We talked about his poetry, and he did release a lyrics and prose book a while back, obviously before his death, and it was fairly interesting. I wouldn't say it was, again, it's his poetry, his lyrics, obviously from from the title, but had some interesting stories in it, and also one thing that was not mentioned in the Janovitz book that I wanted to mention was that Slash from Guns N' Roses in his book recalls a time seeing, there it is, lyrics and prose, Ric Ocasek. Thank you, Balinor, my esteemed. I mean, I think he's up for an Emmy or a Grammy. I don't know which one, but I think he's close. In Slash's book, he says that he saw Ric Ocasek as a kid in Los Angeles and said, that's a rock star. That's what I want to be. And could you be a bigger rock star than Slash? I mean, the image of Slash with the hat, I mean, arguably part of the last rock band, great rock band that's, because rock really in the popular vein is pretty much dead. There is no rock artists on the pop charts at the moment. But who knows? Maybe we'll see the return to that again. So I want to talk a little about Rick, and I guess I want to talk about a meeting. I kind of was there, and I want to talk about his relationship with Paulina. But before that, I figured we'd share some poetry. Some Rick will read us a poem from that lyrics and prose book called Paul's Bakery. And we're going to put up a picture of Rick, and it's about a minute and a half or so. So let's just enjoy Rick giving us some poetry read directly from his book. Let's try that out and see how it goes. There's Rick. He's looking very fashionable there.
I'm sitting here at Paul's Bakery,
Audio,
and waiting for the studio to open.
We need more
Everyone's
audio.
late when the New England snow blows.
Allowed
I'll
it.
probably work on the same song for the rest of my life.
How about we
All songs
rewind
being
the
one.
audio?
Hume said that I'm sitting here at Paul's Bakery watching
And make it a little bit louder.
That's the max, boss.
Okay.
the blizzard and waiting for the studio to open. Everyone's late when the New England snow blows. I'll probably work on the same song for the rest of my life, all songs being one. Hume said that the entire world is in one's mind. All knowledge comes from sensory impression, rather than a prior aspect of reality. You don't see time, for instance. So what's the rush? Time is close. Things get quiet when it snows. Time seems to stand still, like when your mind sleeps between thoughts. So let's talk about envy and jealousy and girlfriends and music, misunderstanding, art, money, trips, death, and slime balls. Muscles, cheap talk, friends, videos, leather, business, skin, purpose, rain and bombs, lawyers, notes and sounds, rhythm, drugs, booze, fights, life, environments, pleasure, rumors, images, pressure, guns, style, escape, movement, junkies, losers, motivation, jobs, and God, and smoke, and differences, and eyes, and the future, and illusions, and waste traps, and focus, and feeling, and time. It's still snowing outside Paul's Bakery, but I could suck in the smell of this place for 1 trillion picoseconds. Everyone's late when the New England snow blows.
And there you go. Now, to me, this would put me to sleep if I had to hear this. But maybe that's the intention. It seems like he's a pretty good place outside of Paul's Bakery, which I'm sure really did exist. Picoseconds, Balinor, is that a real measurement of time? I don't think he knows. He's probably fell asleep after that.
Yes, it is.
It is. Okay. And then you see a lot of juxtaposition in his poetry where it starts off very, bland, and then he throws in slime balls, or he'll say he's talking about love, and then all of a sudden it's junkies. You see a lot of this in his writing and especially in his poetry, where it goes from almost a whimsical to real street. I don't know if that was part of his personality or that's how he liked to write. Now, I don't think too many people have delved into Ric Ocasek's poetry. I felt a lot of it was it just didn't do anything for me, except for the vulgar side did a lot for me, which speaks to what I like, because you would hear so many pop songs, and what you heard on the radio that was written by him, it would absolutely contradict what he was doing in his a picosecond is, how do I say this?
10 to the negative 12th.
10 to the negative 12 power. Is that how I say that?
Yeah. So there's 11 zeros and then a 1.
Oh, okay. See, thank God I have a mathematician. Thank you, sir. Yes, this is Mikey brings up a good thing. The Rangers, the Cars had several wig masters in this, and I have to tell you, Ric Ocasek's wigs, they were varied because the styles would change, and I have to say they were very hard to pick up. Now, listen, I can recognize a wig, okay. as you can see, I don't know how much hair left, but apparently Rick suffered from alopecia, which also I think did a number on his eyebrows as well. And alopecia I first heard about was during the whole Will Smith Halle Berry thing. I think Halle Berry went into her hair became an issue, and then I don't know. Will Smith had a fight with Chris Rock. I don't know what was said, but and I've heard alopecia before that, but apparently Rick was struck with this, and he had to wear various wigs. And I was up close. I never saw like something peeking out, but there is a photo of Rick. It might be in one of his poetry books without a wig. And I'll see if we can get hold on next time we do this. And I always wondered, but I always would look and I could not. So he was follically challenged, as we say, and was bald at a relatively early age, although he was fairly old when he was in the cars. And another thing in Bill Janovitz's book is he kind of tries to take down, and I don't want to say take down, maybe that's the wrong word. He implies that Rick's first solo album, Beatitude, was not really a success. I don't think at that juncture, I don't think it was in Rick's mind to make a hit album. As I said on last show, it was I think he enjoyed doing that more than probably anything that he did post Cars. I mean, yes, the mentorship of other bands and that whole hero worship that he got from working with younger people and people that admired him. Yes, he loved that. He soaked that in. There's no doubt about it. How would you not soak that in? But he really loved this solo album. And I can tell you he really loved it. In 1982, 83, which I don't know if we still have that picture of me on the senior trip with the water gun. Do we still have that, Ballinor? That picture is also, again, I always have like Cars luck. Like there are certain times in my life that the Cars and my life intersect at the right time. And on this senior trip, there I am on the senior trip. I'm in some kind of bus. I don't know what, a Peter Pan bus. Who knows what I'm on? We're going to Washington, D.C. And, Washington, D.C. was, again, I think it was my first trip really away from home from my parents. And I think the night before or 2 nights after we got there, it must have been a Friday or a Saturday. We're watching this. We're in our rooms. It's me, my friend John Geppetto, Victor DiGilio, Dave Maloney. Is it Dave? Mike Maloney, R.I.P. And Paul Ugelmeyer. There's a name for you. And we're sitting in our little dormitory there. Again, it was only like 2 beds, too. I don't even know how he fit in there. This is good. I guess, I don't know. I mean, school, you would think we'd all have a bed. They would set up a hotel with a bed, but apparently this was not the case. And all of a sudden, there is a show that comes on at midnight called Rock and Roll Tonight. And they're going through the bands that will be appearing. And as they're going through the bands, it's like Crocus, which is like a metal band. And then it's I don't know, some other band. Then it's, Howard Jones, I think. And then it's Ric Ocasek. And I'm like, what? Ric Ocasek's going to be on now? And I have no way to record this on VCR. There's no way I can document this moment. This is a freak out. I turned to John Chappelle. I said, John, you got your radio and your tape deck. I said, can you tape this? Because it's being simulcast. They used to simulcast TV programs on FM stations for certain musical programs. And we had no idea in Washington who would be simulcasting this. So he actually found it. And I did get a recording from that on like one of the worst tape brands ever. Because again, I didn't have money, so it was like something like 6 for $3 or something. I don't know, it was like 50 cents a shot. But I did get a recording of it, and I was lucky to see it. I was so excited to see this because I wanted to see what Rick was all about solo. I mean, without the guys around, and what kind of setup was this going to be? Was it going to be full musicians? Was it not going to be? And he comes on stage, and I believe this was taped out in California. It's not Fresno, but it's somewhere out there. I used to know the title. I'm sure John Mortis will let me know in the post-video comments where it was at. But it was definitely out in Los Angeles in California. And he appears on stage with just a guitarist and Greg Hawkes, the keyboard player from the Cars. And again, where's the bass player? Where's the drummer? No, this is not going to be typical, rock and roll, group experience. This is going to be almost like he recorded the album with a lot of electronic drums and a lot of synths, obviously supplied by Greg Hawkes, and guitars, the guest guitarist, Casey Lidstrom. And it was so weird to see somebody playing guitar other than Elliot Easton with Rick. And Greg was Greg always struck me as a mad scientist. Like, he was basically, and I think he even, like, when I showed him a couple albums and I had them sign them for me, he was like, yeah, I think I did that down Rick's basement. Like, I felt like he was the only guy who was like on call, and Greg would always show up for Rick, which shows a lot for Greg because, in the end, Greg should have gotten a lot more credit and money generated by the Cars' endeavors. And Rick should have really took care of Greg. He should have taken care of everybody. But the fact that Greg was just so willing to help, and, that's what he did. That's what he loved to do. It was hard to turn down creating, as any musician. When you're put on the spot to create, it's a very rewarding situation. So I'm watching the show, and listen, I know Rick at this point. This is pre-Paulina. So, yes, Rick, you know what? Mike's saying he would sing the wrong lyrics. Yes, but he would sometimes he would flip verses, but sometimes he would just come up entirely with different words, which to me was like kind of cool because it was like almost like an alternative version. I mean, how many times? I mean, the earlier stuff he never really screwed up. Even Benjamin and Just What I Needed screws up at Live Aid. But yes, Rick would do that a lot. I think he would just lose his place. But on that show, I got to see Rick really enjoying himself. He's smiling. I think it's because it was almost like it's not just about the other guys, it's about me. Now, I know that sounds selfish, and it is. I mean, obviously, this kind of reinforced the thought that he was the talent. I don't agree with it. And I don't think he really thought he was the talent. But, at this show, people were going wild. And when I say wild by car standards. You know, the people were not, you know, in the pit throwing elbows and moshing. But if we take a little look at this Rock and Roll Tonight show featuring Rick Ocasek, you'll see something that you've never seen at a car show. So let's see the Connect Up to Me clip, which is extraordinary great. Extraordinary. And there's Casey, there's Greg up top there. Got a little riser. We got a girl slipping on stage. She's dancing. And there's a guy comes, a crew member comes up, chases her away. I wonder if that's Head. I don't know. There's Greg with his bank of keyboards. Casey Litchfield, who really brought it in the song. And that's not Rick's setup there. That was used for all the bands, I believe. Hey, look, you see a little smile there? No glasses? I have to look at his eyebrows to make sure that when I paint it on. Okay, that's good, Eleanor. So there you see that Connect Up to Me video is one of my all-time favorite Cars-related videos. And listen, the Cars Live were not there's only certain performances that I will watch and kind of get jazzed from, you know, and, you know, I got a little bit jaded with the fact that, you know, after you hear the same songs over and over, it's like, if I got to hear just what I needed one more time live, you know, I'm putting a gun in my head, so to speak. But what we have, we had is, you know, that was just something really cool, and he really enjoyed it there. So, you know, you know, again, was he an egomaniac? Yes, he was certainly an egomaniac. There's no doubt about it. But it's hard in that position when you're inundated with compliments and love, and your peers are admiring you, and they're telling you it's a rough world to navigate, and especially a guy that had worked so hard at it and really maybe threw people under the bus to get there. I don't know. You know, I mean, he certainly in the book by Janovitz is painted, and again, he's not here to you know, to speak his mind about it, but as a guy that maybe, especially when he hooked up with their manager, Elliot Roberts. Well, I say his manager because he really didn't really manage the rest of the band. That became more of a bigger animal in that way as far as ego goes. And so, you know, Rick, in a lot of his interviews is very flippant. One of the things I found really interesting in an interview that I heard, and I can't think of many artists that have ever said this. Maybe they have. In one interview, he referred to All Mixed Up, which is the last track on the first album, which is sung by Benjamin Orr. Great song, and it's multi-layered and it's different than any other track on the album because it brings a lot. There's changes. It's non-formulaic. And he said in that interview that he thought the Red House Painters, which were an alternative group, I'm not too familiar with them, that they did a better version than the Cars version. And I've heard it, and I didn't think it was better. Well, look at there's the Red House Painters there. They look a real happy bunch, as you could see there. That kind of right looks like someone shot his. But yes, there's the Red House Painters. I don't know what you would define them. Yes, the sax at the end of that album on that album on All Mixed Up is quite the outro. A very unexpected, very it just again it had a little bit of unpredictability, and that's what the Cars really kind of lacked. Although it was all great on record, live the unpredictability was obviously not there. You pretty much knew what you were getting before you walked in, but since they were such consummate musicians, and played everything line for line, and of course there were some hiccups with the lyrics once in a while. And as a matter of fact, later on in years, and on the final Move Like This mini tour, which are all kind of mini tours, they never really did like a full blown 60 dates tour or whatever. Rick had to use an iPod. So he used an iPod in order to iPad in order to memorize the lyrics. They would scroll, which I've seen a lot of musicians do in their later years. I remember seeing Jerry Lee Lewis doing them. He had the scroll like right where the wedge for the what's the word I'm looking for? The wedge for monitors. The monitors in front of the stage. He would have the lyrics scrolling on there, and I'm talking like Great Balls of Fire. Like he was not. This is like not an obscure song, but you get to a certain age, you're gonna forget lyrics. And I'm not Rick. It was like 35 or whatever he was at the time. Not at the Move Like This, but earlier, and he was in his 30s. Should have been able to memorize his own lyrics. But sometimes you get caught up in the moment. You get lost. I mean, I did that. Like I said, I had the chance to ask Rick if he was nervous at CBGB's, and he said no. Oh, he lied to me. Well, maybe he didn't lie to me. Maybe later on in his life, he got lied. Now, Mikey Surfing, Mikey is Surfing, has talked about how he loves sax. We all love sax, don't we, ladies and gentlemen? Yes. And he's totally correct that All Mixed Up did not become part of the set list after 79. It was pretty much erased. And I don't know. I don't understand why. Again, you got to play your new songs from your new album. But it's a very tough song to sing. It's, and this is another thing. Again, I'm not bagging on Bill Chatto. It's just these little things. And it's funny because you're sensitive as a Cars fan. He kind of pigeonholes Benjamin Orr's vocals as being very Elvis-like in some of the songs. This, first of all, no one sang or sung like Elvis, okay? Benjamin Orr was able, he had an incredible range. He could go deep baritone and then in that song, All Mixed Up, he reaches such a high note when he says, when you leave it to me, on the me, he completely just almost not falsetto, but just hits such a high note. And from going that low, he was just a natural. That's all I agree. He was a natural singer. He was born with that gift, and there's no one else could pull that off. I mean, maybe Bowie, but Bowie got a little squeaky when he got higher, and he had more of a not as pure voice as Benjamin had. Like you can hear like him going from his baritone Bowie, like in the collaboration they did with Queen, Under Pressure. You can hear, but it's just now Freddie Mercury. I mean, he was unbelievable, probably the best singer, but he couldn't go as low as Benjamin could go. But Benjamin couldn't go as high as Freddie Mercury could go. Freddie it was almost operatic the way he sang. So I did not like the fact that a lot of the songs he kind of like pigeonholes Benjamin sounding like Elvis. Uh, he could pull off that baritone in songs like This Could Be Love. He could pull it off, like even in some of the backing vocals on Shake It Up, the song. He's like, go, go, go. You know, like he could get down there. He could get real low. Like, apologize for my singing, but that I'm just trying to give you the examples. So he was extraordinary on All Mixed Up. You got the saxophone, the drums, the let's see, there's Benjamin Orr. I think he's got one of his cars pins on there. Benjamin had a lot of different looks. It's so unfortunate this guy died so early, 50 years old. Just a shame, absolute shame. Yep, Think It Over too. Yep, very good, Mike. Just a tremendous singer. And I don't know, I'll never be able to understand why this guy got that song or Rick got this song. There's certain songs I think Benjamin could have done a better job. There were songs that Rick sang in the demo version that Ben got. So I'll never be able to figure that out. Both of them are dead, and they Benjamin seemed to be okay with it until Heartbeat City and Up. After Heartbeat City came out, and especially the video in which he sang Drive came out, and video, of course, the video opens up with him, but then you don't see him for like 3/4 of the video because Rick's hogging it with Paulina, and we'll get into that later. People on the message boards are talking about, I say message boards. We're talking the Facebook groups. They're talking about the Cars and sax, and Mikey brought it up as well. Listen, I have a certain ear for music. I can't say I have a perfect ear for music, but in 1980, when the Cars went over to Tokyo, they did a version of Candy-O. Now, Candy-O, and that's another thing with this book, Candy-O, they kind of skim over Candy-O on the tracks, and I'm like, are you kidding me? This possibly could be the heaviest Cars song, especially live, that they ever did. They really did this song justice on every tour. And they would change it up a little bit, add some electronics. There they are. And I actually have that. I actually have that actual picture hanging up in my man cave here. This was a hard-hitting song. I feel like, I hate to say this about a song, but this song to me is very sultry and sexy. I guess because I think about the album cover, and it's like he's talking about a girl, and Candy-O could be what a lot of people said O stands for obnoxious, or like just unattainable girl. I don't know, whatever that mood that is set in that song, plus the guitar solo is fantastic in that. It's tight, it's condensed. There's a lot of notes in a short period of time, which was Elliot Easton's, that was his genius. A lot of notes and a very short period of time, almost like mini songs. And, I felt like it was kind of passed over on the review of that album in the book. Now, we're going to go to the song because in the Facebook groups, we've talked about, well, where do you hear saxophone? Now, we know Greg Hawkes plays saxophone. He does it on his live performances now with Eddie Japan. He'll play it during All Mixed Up. And I always wondered, in Tokyo, they played a version of Candy-O with saxophone. And I like to play it now. And I want your guys to say, oh, very New York. Let's listen to and see if this is a saxophone once we get into it, right after the verses start. Okay, here we go.
Could you help me? Purple home, a soda cards, a razor light you bring. All to prove you're on the move and dancing. Candy-o, I need you so, but this you know. Candy-o, I need you so, but this you know.
Here's the solo. Coming right now.
Yeah, tonight, it's that shelf. Obstacles don't work. Tonight, centralized, it's just work. Different ways to see it through. All the same in the end. Peculiar stuff, that's who you are. Don't have to win. I need you so, but this you know. I need you so, fortissimo. I need you so, but this you know. I need you so, but this you know.
All right, there you go. Candy-o. So to me, that sounded like a saxophone. I didn't hear the normal keyboard parts, after the first verse was done. So I'm going to surmise that that was saxophone. And that was, I guess, maybe a treat for the Japanese audience that we never really got to see. So that was one of my nominations on the Facebook group that they did use it on Candy Love. I would love to hear what you think. If you think that's saxophone or maybe a keyboard that's made to sound like a saxophone. I don't think they had that technology at that time to make it sound like that. But hey, any thoughts, Balinor, if that's a saxophone or not? Or you?
Sure.
Okay. I got to think. At least he's honest. He's like, sure. You know what? We're getting a question in here about the Heartbeat City songs. Did I like the performances? It's a mixed bag for me. Like My Best Friend's Girl, I did not like in the Heartbeat City. It's too canned with the vocals. You know that's not the vocals they're singing. They're tracks. It doesn't, but a Good Times roll I do like from that. And I think that's because of hearing, them opening up with that song on earlier tours and it just being like when they got to the Good Times roll part, it was pretty weak. Like it was weak. It didn't have the power of the album. Again, they were kind of I liked Good Times Roll. I did not like My Best Friend's Girl. Moving in Stereo, I liked. What else did they do with the first album? Just When I Need It. I did not like Just When I Need It. And I think there's two versions of Just When I Need It out there. There's one from the Westwood one, and there's one from the actual video. And in the video also Mrs. Candy-o, which we just played, but is in the Westwood one. So it's weird how they on the video. I say video. There was a videotape of that performance at the Houston Summit, and at the Summit it fades out during You're All I Got Tonight, which is so stupid. Why would you fade out of a concert song just to roll the credits? You couldn't let that freaking thing just end and then roll the credits? What are you running out of tape? I mean, come on. That annoyed the shit out of me when I got that tape. And they're fading out of a song. Are you out of your mind? But on Westwood One, it's played the entire song is played. You're All I Got Tonight. Although You're All I Got Tonight is not that great of a version on that, which is another song from the first album. So mixed bag, really. Good Tim wrote. You're talking about his drum set. It's funny. He played a drum set that I've very rarely, if ever, saw. And I would love to ask him if I had another shot at. I said, "Why did you choose Slingerland drums?" And I just remember doing some research when I was younger. I could not tell you. I could not tell you what they really. I remember a lot of jazz musicians played Slingerland drums, and why he used that as his bass set until the electronic drums kind of took over, I do not know. I always got the feeling that David, and I said this on the last show, was not a drummer's drummer. He was into the new gear and all that stuff, but he wasn't like these guys, a guy who was buying new cymbals or trying this or adjusting his snare. I don't know. He just was not a gearhead when it came to his own drums. Because, when the Cars broke up, he had switched to Tama drums, and he sold his drum set. Now, I can't think of any drummer who was really like serious about his drumming. Maybe he just had enough. Maybe he needed the money. I don't know. But the fact that he didn't want to go in his garage and putz around on the drum for 2 hours, which most of these drummers, they're insane. They go and they practice. You're like, what the hell are you playing? This sounds like the same thing. It's like a drummer's drum solo. I mean, Neil Peart, who the hell else could differentiate from somebody's drum solo? I mean, wait a minute. Here's something interesting that Mikey's pointed out. Fun fact, as the end credits rolled on the VHS tape, there is a name that is a technical member of some sort. Joel Osteen, the televangelist. Isn't this the guy who wouldn't let people in his church when there was a flood? Is he from the Houston area? I wonder why. Wow, that is interesting. We may have to look into that. Investigative reports. Wow. A holy roller involved. The Houston Summit show, which for the most part was a very good show. But yes, it was a little bit different. It wasn't as gritty, the older songs. Oh, so he is from Houston. So this makes a lot of sense. Wow, that could be a trivia question amongst us. What do you call a Cars fan? Not a Cars head. What do you call them? A gearhead. So my wife said, I'm a gearhead, man. Well, there you go. Very interesting. See, I like to learn stuff. That's why I like the interactive part. See, Mikey bringing in more stuff. His dad was the original pastor of the church that moved into the Summit. Wow. I'm telling you, I enjoy all this knowledge. I don't know, man. I'm just a total geek when it comes to the Cars. Yeah. But so we've talked a little bit about Rick's. We've been over to the Houston Summit. We talked about the live tape. Was it 84 to 85? I think it was. That was the official Heartbeat City, 84 to 85. And we already talked about the sax. And sax does appear in other songs. They say it's on Maybe Baby, but I barely hear it at the end of it. And as we discussed last week, to me, that's the weakest song on Second Side. It's very monotonous. And it sounds just like the demo, Be My Baby, from Panorama. So there's no difference. There's virtually no difference. but we weren't privy to that back then. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Paulina. Now, I wanted to not like Paulina in the worst way. Early Paulina, I didn't know anything about. She was 18. She was in the video. I'm like, good for Rick. He scored a model. I mean, the guy isn't the most classically good-looking guy. Let's put it that way. I mean, he always dressed well, but he looked like Ichabod Crane, or he was a weird-looking dude. Guy had the biggest Adam's apple known to man. I'm not talking about creative. That's at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when they were, well, they say estranged. I have to say that they had a great relationship because she supported him even though they were not married. They were living together, but they weren't, they just weren't together. Whatever that, they were not a married couple. And there's Rick. Now, Rick looks a lot like, I felt like Dana Carvey at this point could have done a great imitation of Rick. Now, this is Rick. This is Rick towards the end, maybe. When did they get inducted? 2000. The year is just 2008. I don't know. I should really know this. If I'm doing a show, I Google when were the cars inducted. Man, this time flies so fast here. 2018. Okay. So I was right. It doesn't seem like so. It seems like 15 years ago. Yeah, 2018. And they all traveled together. Now, Paulina, there were some things I didn't like about her. She was first of all, she's very outspoken. That's not a problem. I like outspoken people of any gender. She's some attitudes on fat guys, like, I find them disgusting, whatever. But I was like, why are you gonna not that I thought I ever had a chance with her, even before I was married. It was just like, why are you gonna negate a lot of overweight people? And she's a supermodel, and it sounds like she's just hating. He's hating on us, large mammals. And obviously she picks the antithesis of a fat guy, which is this lanky, gangly, skinny, super skinny dude. I cannot emphasize how skinny this dude was. You guys all know it, but I saw him in person. I was like, I don't think I've seen anybody skinnier or taller. That combination, other than basketball players, But I really thought, and Paulina was on Instagram, and when Rick left her out of the will, she was crying a lot, and it was, I followed this for a while, and then I was like, this is Crazyville. She's telling how she's broke, she's got no money. I'm like, how does she have no money? You were a supermodel. I mean, you didn't have but it turns out she had the same financial people that Rick had. He was that hubba. There's Paulina, beautiful young lady, beautiful woman now. But and I was like, woe is me with this bullshit. She was a Yoko, and I kind of thought of that, but it turns out she was very supportive with Rick. I read her book, and she could have really laced into Rick. With the opportunity to write anything about your ex-husband who left you out of the will, she could have sliced and diced him and let us know into every bad habit, sexual sexual things that maybe he was good at, bad at, or maybe he had affairs. We don't know. I'm going to bet my bottom dollar. Guys, you Rick Ocasek fans will know that this man did indulge in extramarital affairs. I just saw him around women. He loved women. I mean, this guy would go. I remember at the when I saw them, I saw him. Yes, no filter. That's the lady there. I saw him with Harper's Ferry in Boston at the club for the Next Day tour, and he was traveling with a band, the Hong Kong, and I don't remember the woman's name. Now he in typical Rick fashion, he was escorting these people. He took them into a van. He's escorting them all over Boston, I guess, showing them all the sites where Synchro Sound was, this and that. And I don't know if you can find the Hong Kong Ballinor and see if we can get this. But their lead singer was a beautiful blonde lady, and there's no doubt that Rick was lusting after this woman. Now, I cannot corroborate or deny this allegation, but it seems like he always, and maybe it just was a pure, like, kind of power trip for him to show her where he cut his teeth, so to speak. Let's see is that her now? No. That's a woman from Hong Kong. This was called a band. The band was called The Hong Kong. Yes. Mikey brings up about the struggling. Yes, his voice got very weak, and at the Hall of Fame, I think it was the emphysema that he could not project anymore as much as he could. He never really was a singer. He had like a song, like a sing-song type of delivery, and it was, he was very weak. And anytime you have an issue with your throat, obviously, and your lungs, which I'm sure this guy was a chronic smoker and just had stopped apparently, but it's hard. Chris Pluggs, who was on this show, told me that cigarette addiction is the hardest addiction to quit. He says your brain is just not hardwired to do without it once it's introduced. So it definitely took its toll on Rick. But going back to the Harper's Ferry show, I was witness. Who knows what really happened? But Paulina could have really laced into, and she didn't. She talked about how good of a father he was later in life with her kids, who I got to see. I always got to sit next to Paulina whenever I went to a Rick Ocasek event. And one of the events I went to was there was a New Yorker festival, and they had guest speakers at the New Yorker festival. This was in 2005 in the city, and it was Annie DeFranco, Steve Albini, who produced the Pixies and Nirvana, and the RZA from Wu-Tang Clan, and Rick Ocasek were on the panel. And I think it was moderated by Sasha Frere Jeffries. I think that's the guy's name. And guess who I get seated next to? Like 3 rows in front of me is Paulina and her sister. And I don't know if she's on social media, but her sister is a beautiful woman as well. So it's funny. I'm surprised her sister never became famous. But anyway, I remember Rick talking about, and I actually taped this. I don't know where the tape is. I mean, it's just talk. But it was, I remember one question Rick was asked is like, what do you think about sampling or Napster? And he basically said, I think you have the picture of that, Ballinor, of the New Yorker shot with the RZA and Steve Albini, who's no longer there. There's the picture. That's from the interview. There's Annie DeFranco on the left, the RZA on the right, and the moderator right next to the RZA. It looks like the RZA is much taller than Rick in that, but I don't think that was the case. Very interesting, diverse panel, you would say. Steve Albini, who just a famous producer, also was in a band called Big Black, with their famous album or infamous album called "Songs About Fucking," which was it was like industrial, but he had talked about. I remember Steve Albini talking about that he was searching for tape. It was anti-digital. He did not want to conform, and he was just looking for tape to record on. And he was going, and Rick was definitely of the same mindset. It's like, yeah, you know. And I remember Rick talking about sampling and stuff, and he was basically like, music is free. He's like, again, I don't know if he meant this again in a whimsical or poetic way, but he said, music is free. You can hear it anywhere. Like you could be going past the window and hear a song. And now that's easy to say, Rick, when you're getting all the royalties for all the songs. But if somebody samples your song and the rest of the band is also getting royalties, you know, that could be a different issue, you know, with the other guys weighing in. This is a very interesting, and I remember there was a gentleman in the audience. There was a question and answer. My question to Rick was so, like, in retrospect, kind of dumb. And I don't usually ask dumb questions. I gotta remember this song. I gotta remember the song here. Give me a second. There's a particular song that I asked him about. Let's see. And this turned out to be his last studio album in 2005, which was, you know, his last album. And oh yeah, on It Gets Crazy, which is the last tune on the album. I asked him, did you do the solo on that? Because I don't think there was any credits. Maybe there are credits for that album, or at the time, the album wasn't released. No, the album was released. But I did receive at the end of it, I got a demo, not a demo, I don't know what you call it. I guess it was a promotional copy only of Yesterday, which I still have. It's up for auction. No, it's not. No. And I asked him, did you play the guitar solo on that? And he said, yes. I don't know if this man was just continually lying to me. It doesn't sound like anything he could pull off. I mean, you know, musically, he could write a song. I don't know if he could pull off a solo that was as cohesive as the one on It Gets Crazy. But nonetheless, oh yeah, go back to my story. There was a gentleman who got up and said, listen, now, this is 2005. The internet's kind of rolling along now at a pretty good clip. And everybody's scrambling to get the rights to everybody's name. You know, there's like, you know, if you got go-karts, you want gokarts.com, this and that. Well, the cars.com was taken. Okay. I think they had the rights to cars.net, you know, and I remember this gentleman getting up and saying to Rick, hi, Rick, my name is so-and-so. I own the rights to cars.com. And Rick wasn't impressed by this, or he goes, if you just have a cup of coffee with me tomorrow or later, I will give you the rights to the cars.com. And I just remember Paulina looking at her sister and saying, oh my God, like almost like this was like a stalker type. And I guess you gotta be very wary of people that want to get close to you and want to have a cup of coffee with you. So I feel like I remember her being I remember her being at every event in the city that he solo. I was at CBGB's gallery when that's also left out of the book. They talk about the lack of promotion. He did, in a very weird scene, he did 2 live numbers and a lip synced version. Oh boy, I forget. It might have been Troublizing, but I think it was more of an upbeat tune. I'll look through the album and get back to you. Well, he mimicked it playing the guitar, and it was piped in music. It was really weird. But CBGB's gallery was adjacent to CBGB's at one point. It was right next door, and it had like art and stuff, but they had enough for like a small audience. And I wound up getting there early and sitting up kind of up in like an upper, so I could get like an overview of the whole thing. And she sat like 4 seats next to me. I had her sister there and had, I guess, their youngest at that time, I don't know which one it was, on her lap. And oh yeah, so anyway, I got ahead of myself. Well, I was talking about the .com, the cars.com. I got back to my house and I was like, well, who owns the cars.com? And it turns out it was this religious group. And I don't know what to see. I can imagine this guy saying, listen, if you turn to Jesus, you're going to have the name. But, they found other ways to market themselves. Although I feel like they never took advantage of the internet age. They never really formed a place where you could just get Cars merch. They never took advantage. I don't know if they had people in their camp that were savvy with that stuff. Again, they had kind of musically their window was over. But you think about bands like, obviously Kiss or Rush now is like they'll sell anything. I mean, they continue to pile in money. And I feel like if the Cars, maybe if they were more involved as a whole, would have gotten that together, whether it be the Cars Instagram, the Cars Facebook page, official Facebook page, all this stuff where you can get revenue. So it was weird that this Jesus freak or whatever, I'm sorry if you're all I don't want to say Jesus freak. Let's call him a zealot. Want to sit down with Rick in order. I felt like he almost hijacked, because people would do that. They would hijack your name and then try to sell a web address and try to sell it to you if they knew what your interest was. That happened when I had a podcast. I had a pretty good name, and my subscription lapsed on having the web address, and it got sniped, got picked up, and then they wanted to sell it to me at a certain price. I was like, get the hell out of here. I'm not paying for that shit. I'll just come up with another clever name. And that's how you got I Heard Things. So, and also in the book, Paulina does not excoriate Rick at all. She does let into, some of his failings, or I can't say failings. He was just human. He did human stuff. He wasn't infallible. He was very flawed. And as Mikey said, I mean, him and Benjamin Orr, they smoked so much. And again, I lost my mother to lung cancer. She died at the age of 62. I'm going to be 61 in February. The fact that I'm going to outlive my mother, it's because she was a heavy smoker. And anytime I see somebody smoking, I'm like, what are you doing? You're shortening your life. Don't do it for you. Do it for the people in your life that are going to miss you when you're gone. Now, I don't know. Rick was up there, but Benjamin died at 50. Okay. He died in 2000. That's 25 years ago. I mean, to me, how it just astonishes me. And he's not the only, I mean, listen, it's just so not worth it for me to I just shake my head, but people continue to smoke. And then I see Elliot too. This Stu Nod. He's doing the thing with Janovitz, the interview with Janovitz, and he's sneaking in the garage to smoke. I'm like, hey, dopey, you're 70 odd years old there. You're going out to sneak cigarettes? How old are you? I was like, his wife probably tells him no smoking in the house. Or you shouldn't be smoking. Wake up, Elliot. Stop smoking. God, I don't understand. But that's here nor there. But I felt like Paulina really and kind of led us into his little idiosyncrasies, how he would get dressed up. Even if he wasn't leaving the house, he was very fastidious and very, conscious about how he looked. He dressed like a rock star every day. Some of the OCD tendencies he had. I mean, his eating habits, which were ridiculous. There's no one in the world who likes fucking circus peanuts. Apparently, Rick likes circus peanuts. Rick also liked, what do you like? Coffee. That's another thing. Coffee's bad for you, man. I don't care what they say. And like, I drink iced tea to get my caffeine, but I don't know. People are so addicted. People are flipping out that Starbucks is going on strike. It's like, I would go on strike too. These people want their fucking coffee. I mean, you don't get a cup of coffee. These people can't subsist in life. So, you have that, and there's grapefruit and a cup of coffee there, and he was good to go. And as Mikey was talking about, Benjamin Orr never met a spice he didn't like. Like, I think one of his friends says, "Oh, I think that gave him pancreatic cancer." Spicy food? I don't think you're a well-known man. You're not well-versed in the medical profession. Not that I claim to be, but I know spicy food, is not going to cause that. And that's such a painful thing to die from. And I guess the way he went out was so terrible. It just, nobody should go out that bad. I mean, he was and there's controversy about the last interview they did on the Music Laden live show, in which he appears, and I think Bill Janovitz did a great review of that. That should be edited out of any future thing, because you're talking about a man who's like 2 weeks from death, skinny, so skinny, not even. He was like bones. He looked like a skeleton. And it was kind of in bad taste. And those guys hadn't seen him. And they must have been like, what the fuck? Like, we knew he was bad, but we didn't know he was that bad. Well, that's all I got for tonight. We've done almost another hour and 15. I could vamp for another 3 minutes to make it a true hour and 15. I want to thank Balinor once again and Mikey for helping me with keeping the discussion flowing. We talked a lot about Rick, his solo stuff, his relationship with Paulina. Talked a little bit about Benjamin. We talked about the sax. Everyone loves sax. And I don't know when I'll do another show on the cars, but when I do, I'll let you guys know. And I did get some. I didn't know Joel Osteen was part of that. Thank you, Mikey. We thank you, and I'm going to say goodnight now, and let's go Rangers and cars forever, baby. Gearheads. That's what they're saying. Good night, everybody.